Hello everyone, welcome back all. Today I'll be taking you all through the landscape management in SAP. We discussed about it in the previous session in short, right? So let me briefly explain about it in the today's session. To begin with, what is landscape management? Landscape management or landscapes in SAP. It is nothing but the logical way of grouping the systems based on the region of operation and SAP servers, right? Which means let's assume we operate in three different countries, one in US, India and Japan. Our servers can be defined and dedicated based on the region of operation, which means we can say PZ1, PZ2 and PZ3. P denotes the production system and 1 denotes the area of operation or the region of operation, which can be 1 denoting US, 2 denoting India and 3 denoting Japan. Right now, similarly, we can also cluster or combine the system or servers based on the business operations rather than the area of operation or the region of operation. Now, what's business operation is your line of business activity indicates the business operations, right? Now, you might be operating in industry which is relevant to a retail, or it could be in a pharma, it could be manufacturing, you could be operating in a uh, textile industry, you could be operating in a trading company. We can opt to keep the same production system across all the countries, clubbing the operation, which means we can replace X with the line of business activity, right? So take an example. If you're operating as in a fashion industry, you can replace F with X. And if you're operating as a manufacturing industry, manufacturing something, if you are manufacturer and manufacturing something, you can replace M. If you are into pharma, you can replace it with P. If you are in retail or wholesale, you can replace it with R and W, so on and so forth, right? This is how the production systems are created. Now let's take a step back and try to understand how the production system is created and how data reaches to the production system, right? Now, taking a step back, let's try to understand the importance of the production system. Production system is or are the most important system of a business operation. Reason being, it is because all the data related to finance, management, inventory, sales, purchases, etc. are extracted from the production system in order to disclose to the company shareholders and the stakeholders. Now, who are the shareholders and the stakeholders? Shareholders are the external parties to the company or the organization, like investors, government, financial institutions, banks, etc. Stakeholders are the internal parties to the company or the organization, like management, employees, creditors, debtors, right? Now, in order to see the accurate data or information in the production system, all the master data and relevant configuration and development has to mandatorily pass through the downstream system. Now, what all those downstream systems are? It is nothing but development system, quality system and the production system, right? Now, just to put it in simple, let's understand this with a simple example, right? Assume you are a manufacturing company, you need to buy certain raw material to use in your manufacturing process, and you raise a PO to the prospective vendor and vendor fulfills your order. Now it's time to pay your vendor, right? To make hassle-free payment, you would need to have vendor BP. BP is nothing but the business partner or a master, bank account and other relevant configurations in your production system, right? Now, since you cannot place your or place these data or configuration in production system directly due to the authenticity, correctness, accuracy of the data, it has to be necessarily or mandatorily moved from the downstream system, that is from the development system to quality and subsequently to the production system. Since we have already seen in the previous slide that P denotes production system, Q denotes quality and D denotes development, this alone is not sufficient to differentiate between the systems, right? Hence, ECC has provided unique identifier called as client, which is the highest OR unit in the ECC. Coming back to the same slide, if you look at this, Here we can see 100 denoting or referring to the development system, which is specifically a golden client or the config client, 120 denoting to unit testing client, 200 denoting to quality client, 220 denoting to pre-prod client, and 300 referring to production system. Now let's check how does it look in the system practically, right? So this is the logon pad. It's a UI screen. It's nothing but the user interface screen where we can see different system IDs. If you notice here, these are the different system IDs, what you can notice. Now I'm going to click on one of the system ID or the server. It will lead me to the login page and it prompts me for my credential like user ID and password. Now, if you look at the top of the screen, right, this is the client, right, which I was referring to as a client ID. Since this is a IDS or a sandbox, we could see only the single number, one number, that is 800. But in general or in practicality, we can see different numbers assigned to each landscapes, right? I will take you through this in detail in the upcoming session. Now coming back to the slide, let's try to understand about the development system, quality system, and subsequently the production system, right? Now development system is segregated into two clients. One is golden client and the unit testing client. Once the standard configuration or the development piece is completed in the golden client, data gets moved to the unit testing client, right, for functional unit testing purpose. Based on the test evidence, if the testing is successful, the same set of configuration or development will be moved to the quality client. Then we perform system integration testing. Now, what's the difference between the FUT, functional unit testing, and the system integration testing is that functional unit testing is a standalone single module testing, but SIT, that is system integration testing, is a multi-module testing. Going back to our same old example, we raised a PO which is part of which is material management, and received goods, invoice, and finally we made the payment, right? Now all these processes has to be tested once to move our changes to the production system. Now once testing is successful in quality system, data will be pushed to the pre-prod client for UAT testing and the sign off. UAT is nothing but user acceptance testing and the sign off. Once the UAT testing is complete and the sign off is provided by the business, we move the changes to the production system, right? Now just to quickly recap of what we have understood till now, we understood about the landscape management. We understood the difference between the area of operation and the business operation. We also try to understand about the importance of the client and the differentiating or the segregating factor between each systems. We also understood about the production system and its importance. We understood how data moves from the downstream system, that is from development to golden client, from golden client to unit testing client, to quality, and subsequently to pre-prod, and finally to the production system, right? Now let's try to understand the documentation process, which is very mandatory to be maintained across the landscape in order to move the changes from the development system to the production system. So generally we maintain configuration document in case of any standard configurations in the golden client, and in case of any custom development where we cannot achieve the result or the outcome or the output in the standard configuration, we tend to go with the custom development. And in case of any custom development, we maintain functional specification and the technical specification in the golden client, right, or the development client. So once this evidential data is maintained in the golden client or the config client, changes will be moved to the unit testing client. So once the changes move to unit testing client, we perform, as we discussed earlier, the functional unit testing, which is a standalone single module testing. And once the testing is successful based on the evidential fact and the documentation, we move the changes to the quality system, and then we perform a system integration testing. It could be a multi-module testing, and once the testing is successfully completed in the quality system, we move the changes to the pre-prod client where we perform the user acceptance testing. Once we receive the sign off from the business with respect to the changes what is been requested, then finally we deploy it to the production based on all this evidential document or the documentation which is available with us, right? So this is all about the landscape management and documentation to the landscape management. In the upcoming videos, let's check on the ways of working, like what denotes project, what denotes support, and the stages of it, change management, incident management, etc. That's it for today. Thank you all for joining today's session. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Looking forward for more participation, feedback, and comment. Stay tuned with us, and please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. Thank you all.